experiential education, some things don't and shouldn't change. For me, taking the time to reflect on our lived experiences and intentionally looking for the gifts in those moments is key. A few years back, I found myself in El Salvador facilitating a group of high school students on a service trip. The night before our last work day, I was in a dilemma. I couldn't figure out which work site I wanted to go to. I'd been to all three. The first one was a school. People loved going to the school, playing with the kids, they got to play soccer, blow bubbles. I hated it. I didn't speak Spanish, still don't, and the students called me gringo when I couldn't get the numbers right with bingo. So I decided never to go back there. Off the list. The second work site, which I had also spent a day at, was helping do the finishing touches of a library as we were building in a community. It was safe. It wasn't too hard of labor, it was fun, it was a safe environment. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go there or not. The third site was the hard labor site. You had to hike down a mountain, across a river, and go up to another mountain before you even started working. And then we were helping a small community build a trench that would allow an irrigation system to be put in so that they wouldn't have to carry water from the river up to the top of the mountain for their farm. It was hard labor, it was in the sun, it was exposed. I had gone for a half day for work earlier in the week, knowing that it was only a half day of work, because I can do a half day of hard work, maybe not a full day. And spent most of my time with a 2-year-old named Tomas, who didn't really speak much Spanish or English because he was 2, so we got along really well. We're besties. So Tomas and I thought I could go back there and maybe just hang out with the 2-year-old. I didn't know what to do, so I went to sleep and I gave myself the freedom to say, I'm not going to decide right now. And I remember praying, all right, God, you tell me when I wake up, what do you want me to do? So I woke up the next morning, and I've learned enough in my life to know to trust my intuition. I asked myself, where am I going? And said, shit. I knew in that very moment I was going to be going to the hard labor site. So we went back down the mountain, and we crossed the river, and went back up the mountain back to this wonderful village, and I saw Tomas, my best friend, and I went over to say hello to him. And in that moment, everyone else in my group paired off for the working pairs for the day. And I somehow discovered as I came back that I, the only non-Spanish speaker in the group, had been paired with Don Rafael, the only non-English speaker in the group, which was going to be a wonderful day of labor. So I was very nervous, freaking out, what am I going to do? And as we walked up to the part of the trench that we'd be working on, Don Rafael said something that made the people near us laugh. And as they translated to me, he said, the trench looked like a drunken snake had dug it because it was all crooked. People who'd worked on it the day before weren't exactly solid at that point. So as he laughed, I relaxed. Laughter for me and for others I know helps bring a little bit more calm in your life. And then we got to work. I wish I could tell you I remember anything about the work we did that day. I remember looking at Don Rafael throwing a pickaxe around and me calling him Santo Rafael. I remember one time he called me Superwoman and asked me if I was in the double day FA, which as a 26-year-old woman, I don't really love being sort of compared to a professional wrestler, but you know, we all have our own issues to deal with. I decided to take it as a compliment for my gross and awesome muscles. At one point, we were digging and Don Rafael found a tarantula, which he picked up and handed to me, and I channeled my Spanish and said, "No me gusta," which I think means I don't like. So then he took the tarantula, threw it on the ground, and stomped on it, and said, "Squeesh," because I taught him that word. So he was really proud to use it. At some point during the day, we just kept talking. I learned about his family. I learned we were the same age. He had 4 kids. I was a single lady off in Washington, D.C. We had nothing in common and had a blast together. And I think we got some good work done as well, but I don't really remember that. As quickly as it began, it was over. We walked back down to where the village was so we could regroup with our friends. I circled back to the folks who spoke my language, and Don Rafael went to go see his family. And I remember being really full. I remember feeling like I had just received all these gifts, and I was alive. And in that same moment, I started feeling really guilty. I felt guilty because I'd gone on this trip to lead these high school students and to provide an experience for them. I had shown up on this trip because I wanted to do service, and I wanted to do something for someone else. And in that moment, all I could think about were all the gifts that I had received. And in that moment of turning from guilt to sort of self-deprecation that is never a really healthy place to go, I watched Don Raphael walk over to me and say goodbye. And he gave me a hug, which, I know, everyone hugs, right? And then he grabbed my hand and he pushed something into it. And he looked at me and in very slow but clear English said, "For friendship." And then he turned and walked away. And as I opened my hand, I had this beautiful bracelet that he had that he gave to me. I don't know the story of it, and I've made this wonderful story in my head of where he got it. It's been his family for decades and decades and decades, and he wants to be part of his life forever. But really, he just gave me a bracelet. But for me, it symbolizes that it was a genuine relationship. Something real had happened on that mountain. It might not be profound, it might not be something that's going to change the course of the world, but in taking time to reflect on that moment, I was able to see all the gifts that I received. The gift to be able to serve, the gift to be outside on top of a mountain, the gift to laugh, the gift to use my hands, the gift to know I really can do manual labor for a full day. But truly the gift of relationship is what means the most. And for me, that relationship reminds me that I am most alive when I'm in meaningful and deep relationships that are based on the experiences we've shared together. And finally, I realized that even when I'm the one receiving all of the gifts, I too can be a gift to others. And I imagine all of us in this room are gifts to one another and to all the people that we serve. And I encourage you to look at yourselves as gifts and also to reflect on all the gifts you receive from the people in your life.